I wasn't planning to notice him. It was the first day of our Thursday night marketing class, and honestly, I was just trying not to fall asleep. I'd worked a full shift, barely scarfed down dinner, and picked the seat closest to the door in case I needed to slip out early. No expectations, no interest in small talk. I was just there for the credits. But then I heard him laugh. It wasn't loud, more like a low, scratchy chuckle, but it cut through the professor's monotone voice like a spotlight. The kind of laugh that made you want to know the joke. So I glanced back, and that's when I saw him. He was slouched in the back row, one ankle resting on the opposite knee, pen spinning lazily between his fingers. Dark hair, tousled like he'd just rolled out of bed, a flannel shirt pushed up to the elbows, and this calm, unbothered look on his face. Like, the class wasn't even a thing he had to take seriously, like he was just there for fun. I remember thinking, he doesn't look like he belongs here. Not in a night class filled with exhausted adults just trying to get their degrees. He looked like someone who did interesting things, who had stories. After that, I couldn't unnotice him. I tried to focus on the lecture, but I kept catching bits of his voice whenever he chimed in. Sarcastic, but sharp. Confident, not cocky. The professor pushed back on something he said, and instead of backing down, he just grinned and made his point clearer. Half the class probably rolled their eyes, but I caught myself smirking. When class ended, he stood up and stretched like he'd just finished a yoga session, instead of sitting through a 2-hour discussion on brand loyalty. I expected him to walk right past me, but he paused, glanced over, and nodded. Not a full-on greeting, just that chin tilt thing that guys do when they don't want to seem too friendly. I nodded back. Week 2, he was in the same seat. So was I. He came in 5 minutes late with a coffee in hand and muttered a joke under his breath as he walked by. I didn't catch all of it, but it made the girl 2 rows ahead snort laugh. Week 3, we got paired for a group assignment. Just the 2 of us. That's when I finally learned his name. Tyler? He said, holding out his hand. Eli, I replied, shaking it. His grip was warm, firm. He held it just a second longer than most people do. The assignment was nothing serious, some fake product launch brainstorming. We sat close, flipping through the packet, tossing dumb ideas back and forth. I kept waiting for him to act like he didn't care, like it was beneath him, but he was all in. Creative, even. He kept making me laugh with these offhand comments that I couldn't tell were jokes or genius. Just so you know, he said as we wrapped up, I totally carried that presentation. I rolled my eyes. You doodled a robot on the margins of the handout. It was branding, he said. You wouldn't understand. We started talking more after that, before class. After. In the hall on the way to the lot. He told me he worked at a record store during the day, said it paid the bills and let him listen to weird vinyl all day. I told him I did admin work at a real estate office, which sounded even more boring when I said it out loud, but he didn't make me feel lame for it. He started calling me Suit, even though I never wore one, and somehow that became a thing. We never hung out outside of class, not at first. But the week it rained, everything changed. It was pouring after class. I didn't bring an umbrella. I was standing under the overhang, looking out at the sheets of water and already feeling the squish in my socks, just imagining the walk to my car. You walking? Tyler asked, stepping up beside me. Trying to time the lightning, I said. Figure if I get struck, I can skip my midterms. He snorted. Come on, I've got a helmet. He gestured toward his motorcycle, parked way closer than my sad sedan in Lot G. I've never been on a bike, I said. He shrugged. No time like the present. I hesitated for half a second, then followed him. The ride was short, but it stayed with me. The wind was brutal, and the rain felt like little pins on my skin. I clung to him like a life preserver. His jacket was soaked, but I could feel his body heat through it. When we pulled up in front of my place, I handed the helmet back, heart still racing, for reasons I didn't fully understand. Thanks, I said. He looked at me for a beat too long. Anytime. And then he was gone. I stood there in the rain for a second, completely still, watching the taillight disappear around the corner. My fingers tingled. My brain buzzed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something I didn't have a name for yet. I told myself it was just a ride, that I was reading too much into it, that guys like Tyler were friendly with everyone. He probably offered rides to half the class, and I just happened to say yes. But the truth? I hadn't stopped thinking about it. Not the ride, really. Him. The way his voice had sounded against my ear with the wind rushing past us. The shape of his back under his jacket. The moment his hand touched my waist when I was climbing off the bike. Quick, steady, and just enough to make my breath catch. The next class, I came in late. Traffic had been brutal, and I was already flustered when I stepped into the lecture hall, dripping from the light drizzle outside. Tyler looked up as I came in, and for the first time, he'd saved me a seat. I hesitated, just for a second, before walking over. He nudged his backpack off the chair with his foot, not saying anything. "You're late," he said under his breath as I sat down. "Yeah, thanks," I noticed. He passed me a granola bar from his hoodie pocket without looking. "You looked like you skipped dinner." I didn't even ask how he knew that. After class, we walked to the parking lot together again. I was halfway to declining a ride when he just handed me the helmet. "Don't be weird," he said. "It's basically tradition now." That became our thing. Every Thursday night, after class, we'd ride back to my place. He'd drop me off. Sometimes we'd talk for a bit before he left. Sometimes he'd come up and we'd eat leftovers, or raid my freezer for cheap ice cream and argue about bad 80s movies. At first it was casual, easy, but as the weeks passed, something started to shift. He stayed longer, we talked more, and every time he sat on the other end of my couch, sprawled out like he lived there, I felt my guard slipping, inch by inch. One night we were watching some ridiculous horror movie. One of those over-the-top ones where nothing makes sense and everyone dies stupidly. I'd made a joke about how the main character was clearly in love with his best friend, and Tyler smirked. "Is that your type?" he asked casually. "Clueless straight dudes?" I froze. I didn't answer right away, just focused on peeling the wrapper off a popsicle like it was suddenly the most important thing in the room. "Eli?" he said after a moment. I glanced at him. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged. "Just wondering. You trying to set me up or something?" "Wouldn't be the worst idea," he said, smiling a little. "But nah, just curious." I couldn't read him. He didn't say anything else after that. Just leaned back into the couch, eyes on the screen. But his leg was brushing mine, and he didn't move it. Neither did I. That night, he stayed longer than usual. It was past midnight by the time he stood up. "I should head out," he said, grabbing his jacket. "Yeah," I said, walking him to the door. "Thanks for the movie commentary," he chuckled. "Anytime." "You've got terrible taste, by the way." As he stepped out, I said something without thinking. "Hey, Tyler." He turned, one foot already on the stairs. "I'm glad we got paired up." His face softened just a little. "Yeah, me too." He hesitated, looked like he wanted to say something else, but he just nodded, pulled his helmet on, and disappeared into the night. I didn't sleep much that night. My brain kept looping through all the almosts, the little touches, the comments, the moments that didn't mean anything, but maybe they did. I kept asking myself the same question. Was I seeing things that weren't there? Or was Tyler showing me something he wasn't ready to say out loud yet? We didn't talk for 4 days after that. Not because anything was wrong. I mean, we only had class once a week. But still, it felt off. I kept checking my phone like an idiot, wondering if I should message him, say something dumb and neutral like, "That movie really sucked, huh?" But I didn't. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who catches feelings and ruins a good thing by wanting more. Thursday rolled around, and I told myself to act normal. Whatever had been happening between us, it was probably just in my head. Tyler was Tyler. Chill, unpredictable, a little too charming for his own good. Guys like him didn't fall for guys like me. But when I walked into class, he was already there. And he smiled. Not the half smirk he usually gave. A real smile, like he was glad to see me. "You dodged my texts," he said as I sat down. "What texts?" He pulled out his phone and held it up. "Sent you 3. You ghosted me." I fumbled for my own phone and realized I had Do Not Disturb on from earlier in the week. I'd totally missed them. I looked up, a little guilty. "I swear I wasn't ignoring you. I was starting to think I got ghosted for real," he said. But he was still smiling. After class, we didn't even talk about it. He handed me the helmet. I got on the bike. Back at my place, we didn't even turn on the TV. I microwaved leftover pasta, he raided my fridge for a beer, and we sat across from each other on the couch, just talking. I don't remember how we got on the topic of exes, but suddenly we were knee-deep in a conversation I never thought I'd have with him. "She broke up with me after graduation," he said, absent-mindedly peeling the label off his bottle. "Said I wasn't going anywhere." "Were you?" "Probably not," he admitted. "Not back then. I was a mess." I watched him for a second. "You're not a mess now." He glanced at me, eyes steady. "You don't know that," I shrugged. "I don't have to. I just know what it feels like to be around you. And it's not chaos." He didn't say anything for a while. Then he leaned back, sipping his drink. "You always say stuff like that." "Like what?" "Like you see something I don't." I didn't know how to answer that, so I didn't. Later that night, after the pasta was gone and the silence had stretched comfortably, he stood up to leave. I walked him to the door like always. He lingered, one hand on the frame. "Hey," he said, voice lower than usual. "Yeah? Next week's the last class." I nodded. "I know. You want to still hang out after?" He looked unsure, almost like he regretted asking. I smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." And then he did something that wasn't part of our usual routine. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. The faint smell of whatever soap he used. Something woodsy and clean. "Good," he said. Then, like it was nothing, he reached up and fixed my collar. Just a small tug, but the way he did it, slow, deliberate, it was intimate in a way that sent a rush of heat up my neck. He held my eyes for a moment longer than necessary, and then he was gone. Final class night. The professor wrapped things up with a slide deck no one was paying attention to, and a weak, "Thanks for a good semester" speech. The lights flicked on. Some people clapped, most just packed up and left like they'd been counting the minutes. I felt weird, like something was ending, but not just the class. Tyler was already waiting outside by the bike, helmet in one hand. "Want to skip the ride tonight?" he asked. I blinked. "What?" "I mean, I can still drive you if you want. Or we could walk somewhere. Grab a drink. Just not go straight home." There was something about the way he said it, like it mattered more than he wanted it to. "Sure," I said, trying to keep it casual. "Lead the way." We ended up at this low-key bar a few blocks from campus. One of those places with string lights, half-broken booths, and music that didn't make you yell to be heard. Tyler ordered a beer and I got whatever IPA was on tap, even though I couldn't care less what it was. We talked, a lot, about dumb stuff, about the class, about the people we both hated, then about life, what we were doing with ours, what we weren't. He told me about his mom, who'd passed away a couple years back, about how the record store was something he fell into, not something he planned, about how sometimes he felt like everyone else had a map, and he was still spinning in circles. "I feel that," I said. "It's like everyone's halfway to being an adult, and I'm still figuring out how to not screw up laundry." He laughed. "That's what I like about you." That made me look up. "What?" "You don't pretend. You just say shit straight." I swallowed. "And that's what you like?" He looked down at his drink, then back at me. "Yeah." It got quiet after that. The kind of quiet that feels like it's waiting for something to happen. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, face closer to mine than it needed to be. "You ever wonder?" But he didn't finish. Just stopped himself. I leaned in too, eyes locked on his. "Wonder what?" He didn't speak. just looked at me like he was searching for permission. So I gave it. I kissed him. Just a quick one. Testing the water. I barely brushed my lips against his, half ready for him to pull back, laugh, turn it into a joke. He didn't. He leaned in again, slower this time, and kissed me like he'd wanted to for a while. Not fast, not aggressive, just warm, focused. Careful in that way that said he wasn't sure how far he could go, but he didn't want to stop. We kissed in the corner booth of that shitty little bar for what felt like a full minute. No one said anything. No one noticed. Or maybe we just didn't care. When we pulled apart, neither of us spoke for a second. Then he said, "I've been trying to figure out if this was just in my head." "It wasn't," I said. And that was all it took. We left without finishing our drinks. The walk back to my apartment felt electric, like the space between us had changed forever. I kept brushing against his shoulder on purpose. He didn't move away. Inside, it was quiet. I dropped my keys on the counter. He stood by the door like he didn't know what to do next, so I walked up to him. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. The second kiss happened with both hands on his face. Then his arms were around me, and we were pressed together, warm and real and terrifying, in the best way. We didn't rush it. We moved like we'd waited long enough already. By the time we reached my bedroom, we'd shed our jackets, shoes, hesitation. That night wasn't perfect. We fumbled a little. Laughed when my bed frame creaked like it was about to collapse. Paused too long between touches, unsure what was okay, what wasn't. But it was good. Better than good. It was honest. Raw. Careful. And when we lay there afterward, still catching our breath, I looked over and saw him smiling at the ceiling. "What?" I asked. He turned his head, met my eyes. "I didn't think I'd ever do this," he said. "Sleep with your study buddy?" He laughed, rolled his eyes. "No, like this. Like, fall for a guy, and not freak out." I reached over, my fingers brushing his. "You're allowed to freak out later," I said. "I probably will." He nodded. "Cool. We can freak out together." The next morning, he was still there. I woke up to the sound of my upstairs neighbor vacuuming at 7 a.m. on a Friday, because apparently that's a thing now, and instinctively rolled over to groan into my pillow. Except I didn't hit a pillow. I hit Tyler's chest. He was warm, bare, breathing steady, still asleep. His arm was draped lazily across my waist like he'd always slept like that, like this was routine for us. And for one dumb second, I let myself believe it was. I lay there watching the light shift across the ceiling, listening to the early morning city buzz filter in through the cracked window. His thumb twitched once against my side. Nothing big, just a small, involuntary movement. But it made my heart squeeze in a way I hadn't expected. Eventually, he stirred. He blinked up at the ceiling, then over at me. "Hey," he said, voice rough. "Hey." Neither of us moved. It was quiet, not awkward, just still. "You regret it?" he asked after a while, eyes still on the ceiling. I didn't even hesitate. "No, do you?" He shook his head, just wasn't sure how weird it'd feel in the daylight. "It doesn't," I said. He looked at me then. "Yeah, it really doesn't." We lay there for a while longer before reality started to creep in. I had work. He had a shift at the store. Life doesn't stop just because something huge happens in your bed overnight. We got dressed in the same room, which felt more intimate than the sleep together somehow. Him pulling on his jeans while I brushed my teeth, both of us trying not to bump into each other like we'd done this 1,000 times. I offered him coffee. He stole the last clean mug. As he stood by the door, helmet in hand, I realized I didn't want him to leave. "Want to come back after your shift?" I asked, trying to make it sound casual. He hesitated just for a second. Then, "Yeah, I do." He leaned in, kissed me once, soft, quick, like it was a new habit. Then he was gone. The next few weeks were messy, in that weird, beautiful way that only new relationships can be. We didn't make any big declarations. There were no Facebook status updates or awkward conversations about, "What are we?" It was just us. He kept coming over after work. Sometimes we talked for hours. Sometimes we didn't say much at all. One night, he brought over a stack of old records from the store, and we spent hours on the floor going through them. Another time, he showed up soaked from the rain, kissed me without saying a word, and dragged me straight to bed. But there were moments, small ones, where I could tell he was still figuring it out, like when his phone buzzed and he silenced it without looking. Or when he introduced me to a friend from the store and just said, "This is Eli." With no context, I didn't push. I knew he needed time. I needed time too. One night, we sat on the roof of my building, legs dangling over the edge, a blanket wrapped around our shoulders. The city was quiet beneath us, the sky unusually clear. "You ever think about what comes next?" I asked. He looked over. "Like after us?" "No. Like after this part. The start. When it stops being new." He was quiet for a beat. Then, "I hope we don't screw it up." "Me too." He turned toward me, forehead resting against mine. "I've never done this before," he said. "With a guy. Or with anyone like this." "Like what?" He paused. "Where it feels like something real." I swallowed around the lump in my throat. "Yeah. Same." We sat there like that for a long time. Just breathing. Just being. I wish I could say everything stayed perfect. That Tyler kept showing up every night with that same crooked smile, and I kept answering the door with that stupid flutter in my chest. That we kept lying in bed like we didn't have questions hanging between us. But life doesn't care how new or sweet something is. It just keeps moving. It started with little things. He'd text less. Not disappear, but respond with short messages like he was distracted. At first, I chalked it up to stress. The record store was understaffed, and he'd mentioned his manager was being an idiot about scheduling. But then one Thursday, he didn't come to class. No text. No explanation. Just an empty seat in the back row, where he usually lounged, like he owned the place. Afterward, I sent a casual, "You good?" text. It was read, but not answered. Hours passed. Nothing. By the next morning, I'd already run through 25 different scenarios in my head. Maybe he freaked out. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe sleeping with me was a mistake for him and he just didn't know how to say it. Or maybe he was just being Tyler. Flaky, unpredictable, showing up when he felt like it. Saturday night, I finally caved and went to the record store. He was there, behind the counter, ringing up a customer, laughing at something they said. Like nothing was wrong. Like we hadn't spent 2 nights last week, tangled up in each other. When he saw me, something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Guilt. But he covered it fast. "Hey," he said, after the customer walked off. "Hey," I replied, keeping my voice even. "You okay?" "Yeah, just needed space." I nodded. "You could have said that." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I know, I just didn't know how to say it without making it worse." "Worse than silence?" His eyes dropped. "Fair." There was a pause. People were browsing around us, music was playing, but the air between us felt thick, heavy. "You want out?" I asked finally. "Just say it." His head snapped up. "What? No, that's not. Eli, that's not what this is." "Then what is it?" He looked genuinely thrown. Like I'd asked a question he didn't know he'd been avoiding. "I don't know," he admitted. "I like you, a lot. I didn't expect to. That makes 2 of us." We stood there, caught in the kind of awkward vulnerability that's hard to breathe through. He glanced over at the register, then back at me. "Can we talk? After my shift?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." Back at my apartment that night, he sat on the couch with his head in his hands. "I've never had something that mattered enough to lose," he said. "Not like this." I sat beside him, waiting. He looked over at me. "You scare the shit out of me." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm 5'9" and have a plant I keep forgetting to water." He didn't laugh. "I mean it," he said. "This thing between us, it's real. And I keep waiting for it to fall apart, for me to screw it up." And I thought, if I just stayed away for a bit, maybe I'd stop caring so much. Did it work? He looked right at me. No. Then he kissed me. Harder this time. Like he was trying to make up for the silence, for the doubt, for all the time he spent trying not to care. After that night, everything felt different. Not in a flashy, dramatic way. Tyler didn't suddenly become a rom-com boyfriend. He didn't bring flowers or say cheesy things or update his relationship status online. But he started showing up more. Fully. No more skipped texts. No more maybe later plans. If he was running late, he told me. If he was stressed, he said so. It was like something had cracked open in him. And instead of holding everything back, he started letting me in. And I did the same. We learned each other in all the ways that matter. Like how he talks to himself when he's focused, quietly under his breath, like he's thinking through a maze. Or how he always sleeps facing the wall, but somehow ends up turned toward me by morning. How he taps his fingers on his leg when he's nervous. How he kisses slow, like he's memorizing the shape of something he never thought he'd get to keep. We didn't talk about love, not right away, but it was there, quietly building. One night, we were lying in bed after a full weekend together. Movies, walks, cooking half a meal, and then bailing on it for takeout. And I was half asleep when I heard him say it. Not loud, not performative, just a soft, "I think I'm in love with you." I didn't even open my eyes. I just turned toward him, heart pounding in that stupid way it always did when he caught me off guard, and whispered, "Me too." It was the simplest moment of my life. And maybe the most important. Tyler still works at the record store. I still sit through Zoom meetings and pretend spreadsheets are exciting. We're not wildly successful. We're not a power couple. We're just real. We cook dinner together 3 nights a week and burn it half the time. We fight over where to order takeout from. He still hogs the blanket. I still forget to buy paper towels. We go to bad movies just to make fun of them, and every time he kisses me in public, he pretends it's a dare. Last week, he left a sticky note on my desk. It said, "I still don't know what I'm doing, but if I'm doing it with you, I'm good." That's the thing about love, I think. It's not about having everything figured out. It's about having someone who'll sit next to you when you don't.